right? I think some of the misconceptions is people come to me when they're broken or they're ruined or they're depressed, and that's actually not the case. Like, people who are already thriving, already happy, already grateful, but also there's a piece that's like missing.
What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Basem Hanna podcast. Today, I am very blessed to be joined by my dear longtime friend, Oliver Manalese. Just had a whole thing about how to say his last name. Who I've known since elementary school and who's had a very interesting life and career path. But we'll get into that. Oliver, thank you so much for being on the show. Before we get started, can you do a quick intro about who you are, what you do now to the audience?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It is such a joy and an honor to be sitting here with you, recording with you.
That is my pleasure.
Having grown up, and we have like a very similar story in elementary school and our upbringing, and also just getting these flashbacks of when I interviewed you on my podcast just a few years ago, and that was like one of the first times.
That was my first ever podcast. That was my first time ever speaking in like the digital realm.
I love it. So it's amazing to see that from that point on, you just started to kind of unleash and like start using your voice and showing, the wisdom and the presence and all of your capabilities and actually demonstrating that and expressing yourself. And it's so powerful, so inspiring, man.
I mean, that's very kind of you. Maybe we can get into the intro so people
can
know what you do.
Okay, sounds good, yeah. Okay, so I'm Oliver Manalese. I'm a lifestyle business coach. Since 2012, I've been helping entrepreneurs eradicate spiritual bankruptcy. And so I do that as a reinvention strategist. So a lot of clients of mine, they get wrapped up. They have their identity all wrapped up in the work that they do and the properties they have and the businesses they own. And they realize that, is this really it? There's a lack of meaning and fulfillment. And so part of the work that I do is to help reframe who they are being so that they can access a new level of impact and joy in their life. And I do it as a business coach, a lifestyle business coach, meaning people who are interested in creating, designing a business that actually serves what their values are, what their goals are. Primarily the people I work with, they want to have more fun, they want to have freedom, they want to have flexibility. And so we try to find ways to have that built into what they are actually doing for a living.
I mean, okay, can I be real with you? Like, as you know, I will
Let's
be on
go.
this podcast. For the longest period of time, and I'm not fully convinced, I have a very hard time believing in like coaching and lifestyle, like that whole thing is really hard for me. You probably noticed this about me because like we're dear friends, and I support everything that you do, and I've seen you be successful, and I've seen your clients be successful, which is more important. But I have this like mental resistance to coaching. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't like people telling me what to do.
That's good. That's good. Well, I feel like as somebody who is entrepreneurially minded, it's, from my experience, you're the type of person who wants to control their destiny.
Yeah.
And there's a level of ownership and responsibility that you take over your path.
That's right.
And as you grow and move forward on your path, the sense of responsibility and ownership just continues to expand. And so there's it makes a lot of sense that if the idea or the paradigm around coaching is someone telling you what to do, then yeah, of course you're going to be resistant to it.
Yeah.
Because like, don't tell me what to do. There's a reason why, you and I don't work in 9-to-5 jobs. There's a reason why we don't live that type of life. So I totally get it. It makes sense to me.
Yeah. Not like, and I'm not saying that because I believe in being very honest on this show. Like I see a lot of podcasts which are just like, it's like somebody basically boosting somebody else's business and like, but that's not what I think people resonate with. I think people resonate with real conversations. Mm-hmm. And so And plus, like, I've known you for a really long time, so I feel a high level of comfort. But before we get into that, because I really do want to delve into coaching and the benefits and like what you do with it, because it's very unique.
I want to finish on that thought though, on the like the resistance to coaching.
Okay, sure.
Before we move on.
No, let's do it.
Because it's one of the things that is very clear to me. I've been doing this for almost 12 years.
Yeah.
And working primarily with entrepreneurs, high achievers, business owners, anywhere from they're trying to make their first dollar all the way to multiple 6 figures, multiple 7 figures. And at every level, what I've become very clear about is there's nothing that I need to give them or tell them for them to do.
Right.
The entrepreneurs themselves, like you know what you want. You know what you need to do to get there, and you know what stands in your way.
Right.
But there's old goals, there's old identities, old masks, there's the noise of social media, the noise of other people's opinions, the distractions of what everyone else is doing, and we're comparing ourselves, and that all gets in the way. One of my biggest jobs is to create clarity and calmness so that you would actually hear your own inner voice. So you could actually listen to what your higher self is actually trying to tell you. And really that's what it's about. It's helping you.
So look, I want, how are you doing that for me? Tell me.
I know, we're so
coaching.
addicted. We're
It's
so
free
addicted
coaching.
with the how, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like, okay, so I think one of the so I had actually somebody come up to me at the gym the other day.
Yeah.
And he's like late in his real estate career, and he's been very successful, done very well for himself, lives a great life, very happy, very grateful, right? I think some of the misconceptions is people come to me when they're broken or they're ruined or they're depressed, and that's actually not the case. Like, people who are already thriving, already happy, already grateful, but also there's a piece that's like missing, right? And for this gentleman, he came up to me and we see each other, we have coffee, we connect, we have these very beautiful conversations in the sauna, in between workouts, in between sets and things like this. And he's asking me, he's just like, well, what do you think about this? Because, like, I've been very busy my whole career. And like, I don't know if I have it in me to keep going in this intense pace, right? Like working so hard, and there's so much more life to be lived with my wife and things like this. And I'm just like, well, ultimately, this is the question. Like, what do you really want? What do you feel like is missing?
Right.
And he said, happiness and peace.
Okay.
And I said, okay, here's the simplest way for you to kind of start getting some traction, getting some movement in those areas. What's the main thing that's in the way of your happiness or robbing you of your happiness? And only you know that.
Right.
And what's the main thing robbing you of your calmness, of your peace? Because we all know that there's things that we are doing, ways that we are behaving, there's things in our environment, there's people that are actually stealing these things that actually matter to us. And as soon as we just acknowledge, oh, this type of conversation, this type of relationship, this type of environment is actually taking away the sense of aliveness in these areas that matter to me. As soon as you make note of that and you start taking steps to remove it or set boundaries or even reimagine it sometimes, you start to free up so much more bandwidth for yourself. Right? So it's not necessarily about like the how, but it's more just helping you gain awareness, right? Helping you notice and observe what's already in front of you, but you might be too busy to realize it's there.
Okay, so I have a very simple mind. So like, as you were talking, I was trying to associate it. I do a lot of association. That's how I make my life easy. Would you say that you are the equivalent of a personal trainer for the mind? Like I go to the gym, I can go to the gym by myself, right? But I know that my results are exponentially better if I go with a trainer and I'm focused and there's a purpose and a path and there is accountability and an external third party making sure that I'm doing the moves correctly and that I'm not like getting distracted. Like, am I on the right path when I kind of associate those two things?
Yeah, I think that's along the same lines, right? I mean, when you are a high performing fill in the blank, athlete, entrepreneur, professional, there's so much that you could actually accomplish on your own. I mean, you have so much resilience and so much inner motivation that you can take any piece of wisdom, any piece of knowledge, any book, and you could run with it all the way to the end.
Right.
But then there comes a time where doing it all yourself, I think that's one of the biggest challenges, right? Like doing it all completely yourself can hit your glass ceiling. You hit your limit,
Right.
because there's things that you can't see. So if you look at your favorite performers, whether they're musicians, artists, prodigies in different, whatever. Like it could be an athlete, it could be an entrepreneur. They have advisors,
Right.
They have mentors, they have guides that are around them for different reasons,
Right.
And it's having these outside perspectives give you more layers and more textures of your understanding. Because one of the things that's very true about, let's say, use the example of a trainer, right? So a trainer is with you during your workout. What the trainer can see is they've spent thousands, 10,000 hours observing movement patterns, mobility patterns, energy levels, capacity levels. When they're looking at you and you're like, hey, I have 10,000 hours plus in business.
Right.
This guy has 10,000 hours in physical fitness and health.
Right.
As he's watching you, he knows when to crank it up and say, Basem, you got more in you. Do more.
Right.
And then he'll also say, hey, you need to take a step back. You need to take some rest. So as human beings, from the outside in, we can see other people's capabilities way more clearly than we can see ourselves. Like, you can see the people around you. You can see, I bet, their gifts and their potential better than they can see it.
Yeah.
A lot of times, right?
Yeah.
And when it's an expert eye, someone who has those conversations, those dialogues, and can help people work through and unpack these things to unblock some of those blind spots, then you have access to a whole other level of yourself that's already kind of there, and it just needs to be unleashed, needs to be revealed.
So what do you, we went way off the questions list here. Like, I guess if I'm trying to open up my mind to this, like, what qualifications do you have or need to become this, like, this life coach, this personal, this like accountability trainer, or like how do you prepare yourself to be able to deal with these high performing, individuals, especially ones like me that would maybe inevitably or initially be skeptical? Like, how do you break that barrier?
Well, I'll be completely honest. The people who are skeptical of coaching are not my audience. They're not my
Right.
clients.
Okay.
Right? The people who work with me have already found ways to invest in themselves, whether they're buying books, listening to podcasts, paying for their own education outside of the schooling system.
Yeah.
They learn about real estate investing, entrepreneurship, personal development. They've paid for these things and they understand what it looks like to have an outside opinion or observer to, guide them along a certain journey.
Sure.
So the people who are very skeptical,
Sorry,
they don't necessarily reach.
Skeptical is not the right word. I mean, like, say somebody who is never done this before, who is interested in doing it, and is now shopping for the right fit. How, maybe a better way is, how do you differentiate yourself from, let's say, other coaches that do what you do? Like, what is that standout feature, or is it a connection? Like, it's a two-way fit, or like what is that process?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm getting memories and moments of clients who've been in those exact situations where they actually have never considered getting this type of help,
Right.
or working with a coach. and then they approach me. And typically, when clients do approach me, there's something going on that's kind of like leading their life astray, essentially. Typically,
Right.
like this one client I'm thinking of right now, he was, had a multiple 7-figure business, family business. His wife's in it with him as well. Business owners, they have a small team, completely overrun, completely exhausted, and afraid that if he doesn't make a change, then he's going to lose out on his kid's life, on his marriage, and he's going to completely collapse. And he only had 2 options: shrink the business to run away from the burnout and the exhaustion. Oh, if I shrink the business, it'll shrink my suffering.
Right.
And the other one is, maybe I should just close up and sell it. Run.
Yeah.
So there are 2, like, escape,
Bro,
like flee, right?
There's a third option.
There's a third option.
Yeah, give up on your wife and children. Yeah,
That's the obvious one. No.
yeah, of course.
And you know what? I think this is a common problem, when you are ambitious and you're goal-oriented, but it gets to a point where you realize there are other things in my life that matter, and my pursuit of success while betraying myself has cost me dearly. And once I've acknowledged that cost, I realized I have to make a change. So for him, what was so interesting is that when we had these conversations, he'd never had a coach, never thought of the idea of having a coach, but he's like, I realize that I can't do this myself. I've done everything that I can to try to make these changes, and I've reached my limit. And so let me talk to someone like Oliver. So they reached out to me, and the conversations that we had, it was so clear that it runs through the very simple process that I talk about in my book, which is the daily
We're gonna get to
prosperity
that.
method.
Don't steal my material.
Okay, yeah,
right
sounds
now.
good.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And ultimately, one of the biggest limiting factors for business owners, entrepreneurs, high performers is that they have run out of capacity. They have run out of bandwidth. Their energy is so collapsed that they can't confront the challenges or the opportunities ahead of them. And so part of what I laid out for them is, this is what we are going to do to create clarity for you. This is what we're going to do to create calmness for you, because your nervous system is so shot. We need to get it down back to earth,
Right.
so that you can see what I can see. And what they were able to see was, oh wait, there's so many opportunities that we could actually set certain boundaries. We can remove certain responsibilities, that, like things that he already had planned, but he didn't. He was so tense and so exhausted that he couldn't take one step at a time. That now, only a couple of years later, he went from 70 hours of work a week down to 25 hours consistently for the last 12 months. He's been working 25 hours a week and only doing the highest value work that actually makes him excited to work every day.
And he's learning to delegate the rest.
Yes, and his wife is down to 5 hours a month of work in this business, and they're actually positioning it to be able to sell in the near future. And so it's so incredible
And
that
did they scale down?
No, they didn't scale down.
Okay.
They're growing.
Amazing.
And so the incredible thing is, it's realizing, oh, I thought I had to shrink. I thought I was going to close and sell, and as a way to escape the mess. But it was actually cleaning up the mess. Cleaning up the mess led to, oh, I can have a life. I can live in my dream home. I can spend more quality time with my kids and my family. I can do the work that I'm excited about, all while I'm reinventing, redesigning my business to serve what I need, to serve what my family needs. And it's not like I had to change businesses, but it was kind of like right there all along. It was just realizing what he already had the capabilities of. And so the main thing that I work on, so my training is as an ontological coach. So that's just a fancy word for the study of being. And so the work that I do is the being of human being. So who you are being informs what you can think, what you can believe, what actions you believe are available to you. When you shift your ways of being, it's almost like you shift what you're able to even see in the world around you, in your life. That's already been there. And I think you probably have this understanding as like stepping into podcasting, being a content creator, becoming more influential using your voice and sharing your message in this way, this is a whole world, isn't it? Right? It's a whole realm where
That's an
before this,
understatement. Yeah.
there's language, there's ideas, there's actions, there's preparedness, there's practice, there's logistics that was a foreign language to you, right? Like it was like a completely different language. And now you're realizing, oh, there's a whole other available set of paths and options because you've shifted or you opened up your ways of being.
Okay, so listen, when we started this thing, I feel like I came off like very defensive. So I want to use this opportunity to like do a mini coaching session, like between you and me, because I actually have, as you were talking, I was thinking about a scenario, like as you were describing the couple that you just described, I'm going through something right now that I'm at a crossroads. Like I really do have to make a decision in my life. It's not like a major decision, but it is pretty big. One of my businesses, I've accepted the fact that I don't have the bandwidth to be in everywhere at all times and be everything to everybody, right? And one of my businesses, there's a person who is looking to partner with me, right? Take 50% of the business, like not a real upsell in terms of like however much money I put in, he's gonna like cut me a check for half, and then we're gonna be 50% partners, which isn't like the reason you start a business. You're trying to make a premium, you're trying to do all that. But he may be able or I believe he will be able to take a load off of me and potentially grow it faster, better, stronger than I would be able to do it alone. But I'm having a very hard time evaluating and making that decision and trying to even figure out like, one, I have a lot on my plate right now, so the idea of going into a transaction is daunting. Like that's kind of the biggest thing that's like deterring me. But two, I'm just like, is that the right thing for me to be doing? So if I come to you with a problem like that, like how do you break that down?
So you have a very important and difficult business decision to make.
Yeah.
And the idea even of getting involved in the negotiation of a partnership and putting an agreement together to make that partnership make sense is already more on top of your plate.
Especially right now, I have a lot on my plate. This is a very busy time. Normally I'm a 25 to 30 hour a week kind of guy, but right now I'm redlining. I'm at like 60, 70 on purpose, and I knew it was going to be.
Yeah, this is the season that you were in.
Yeah. And we talked about this last time we worked out together, like for the next 6 months, this is going to be my life. But I'm like, if I go down this road, I could potentially like have a release valve, a pressure release valve. But if I go down this road, it could be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
What kind of business is it? Keep that.
Yeah, it is in my core business. Like it's in my the realm of my core business, and it's something that I've just recently, whatever. It's for my exempt market dealer. Like I just got my exempt market dealer license, and I always knew that wasn't a business I was going to run full time myself. Like I can't be a real estate developer and an equity raiser and
chief everything officer.
Like that's like exactly. Yeah. So I think my core is in real estate. The raising equity stuff is a vital part of the real estate business, but there's people that are much better than me at it. So I'm like, okay, well, and this is the thing is like this opportunity came to me, right? Like I press released that I got my exempt market dealer license, and this person was like, hey, we've been talking for a couple of years, like what's the let's pick up the conversation now that you actually have the tool that we need. Here's what I can bring to the table. Bam, 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 bam. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I need, right? But then I'm like, man, what if it goes wrong? Like I've been through enough deals and deal cycles to know that if it goes wrong, or if negotiations take longer than they need to, and like just like the minute, even after you consummate and you sign all the documents, like it's not like it goes perfectly from day one. It's a brand new relationship. It needs time. It needs effort. It needs. So I'm like, there's.
Well, yeah. Anytime that you are entertaining a business partnership, that's like another marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's, you bring in all these relational dynamics. You're bringing another person, you're bringing their personal life into it as well. You're bringing everything that's on the line for them as well. And so depending on the quality and the depth of that relationship, and that could actually affect your ability to communicate with one another and actually be on the same page.
Right.
I feel like the amount of work that it would take to actually be happy with that relationship, it's, I feel like that's a whole other project. It's an additional project for you.
Yeah.
Right? You want to be able to, because I feel like if you are in a partnership, it's about seeing the same vision together. Where this potential partner is like, hey, your vision, hey, that's my vision. I see myself there. I see how I can contribute to it.
Right.
Right. And to actually game plan, what if things don't work out as planned? What if we have a breakdown in our communication? What if we have a breakdown in our relationship? How are we going to navigate that? And I think those are all the things that you're going to have to plan for. And the question is, it's like, are you mentally in the place to be able to establish that level of integrity in a partnership?
So the answer is no, I'm not. But my gut, which I follow often, tells me that if I can get over the hurdle of not being in the right place right now, I think this might be the right partnership. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it doesn't take away the possibility that this might be the right thing for you.
I know it's not the right time. I think it's actually the right partnership. And I don't know what weighs more, in like what should weigh more in my mind. Like, this is a real life thing that I'm struggling with. Like literally, as you were describing that couple's problems, I'm like, free coaching.
What is the biggest thing that so having this business where you feel like someone else could be doing a better job than you, right?
Yeah, or
so
a more active job.
Be more active because you have like so many things on the go. What is it costing that business for you to not be delivering what it needs?
So this is the thing. The reason I'm redlining is because I'm putting all of my efforts into growing that business. So it's not that business has my full time and attention right now.
Okay.
Right? In addition to what I normally do at Almega, I'm now like, I'm a boss of something else. So it's not that it's taking it away. It's just like, how long could I sustain this, 70, 80 hour, 60, 70, 80 hour week life with what I have? Like, I'm a full-time dad. I'd like to be a present husband, like all like, and I do podcasts and all this stuff. Like there's only so many hours in a day and you don't want to burn out. I'm just like, and the reason I'm redlining right now is we've just launched our first project and I have to complete that. Like what I would love is to finish that project, raise all that equity, and then have this conversation. But then the business is in a bit of a different position because now we've successfully completed a project. There's value there. There's like, so I think it might change the negotiating dynamics to maybe something that is not attractive for that.
For them.
Yeah. So I'm like, I do believe in moments in time. There are moments in time where stars align, and if you capture that opportunity, that's yours. And if you don't,
so does a part of you think that if this person doesn't join now, that there isn't another person?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I'm such a yes man when it comes to opportunities that I don't. Do I risk a bird in the hand for two in the bush, or do I, reorganize things that I've been working on for the last few months with the idea, or do I just try to do everything at once? and instead of doing like, I'm not.
I wonder if I feel like there might be a simpler path. I wonder. Yeah, one of the things that I observe is if a part of you thinks that there isn't, or maybe there won't be another person, right?
There's always another person.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a scarcity mentality, thinking that this is it. If I don't get this guy, then I'm done, right?
I don't believe that.
Yeah. So that there will be another person if this is not the right person, or if this is not the right timing for you to engage and make this deal happen. So I feel like this is a problem that is already on its way to becoming solved at some point, because you already have that gap, right? And so it's a matter of, if you really believe in this person, is there a way for you to have the business relationship move forward without the burden that you are describing, right? Like, can you create an opportunity where it's not so involved and so complex as to, like, okay, we're doing a 50-50 deal, and we have to put all these things in place, and we have to protect each other, and and we have to create a plan for if we have a complete breakdown, like how are we going to navigate these issues, especially if it's 50-50, right? Because now you're both equal.
Yeah.
But if you're like, no, I'm still the boss. Like,
Yeah.
if you're like, I'm still 51, like I still have the final say, then you might have a little bit of a different dynamic in that situation. But I wonder, does marrying another person, is that the only path?
That's a great question. That the answer is probably no. Like, it doesn't. I don't. There is definitely intermediary steps. It's just, I think I don't want to lead somebody on. Like, if I pull on that thread and I'm not fully committed, then it probably won't work, because they won't be fully committed. Like, if I take my foot off the gas, they'll take their foot off the gas, and then it comes back to that moment in time, right? Like, if you, I think what you said, just like one thing earlier, is probably the best. Like, how is there a dating option?
Right.
Where
courting.
Yeah. Is there a courting option that could work for the next 6 months? But I think to do that, I just have to be honest, right? Like,
you're honest, you're transparent, and you say things how they are. And I think it's just a matter of having that uncomfortable conversation. One of my clients, he just messaged me yesterday. When we worked together for a couple of years, and when we started working together, he's in the real estate business, and he was completely exhausted, and he was emotionally unstable because of everything that was going on. And he stopped trusting his gut. He kept second guessing himself. He kept looking at other people's opinions and weighing their opinions above his. And so even though he knew what decisions to make next for himself, he just felt so overwhelmed and so stuck. And so part of the work that we did is, like I said earlier, it's let's clear the space, let's calm you down, let's get your energy back, and get you back to a place where you're at a higher level of thinking. Because right now you're in reaction mode.
Right.
But when you get back to the higher level of thinking, you can see the landscape far more vividly with higher resolution. And so what he realizes, this is one of his famous lines to me, he's like, Oliver, I realized that I'm not passionate about real estate. And I'm like, oh, damn, okay. He's like, I'm passionate about business. I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, I don't want to be just a real estate investor. I want to invest in businesses, which is super exciting, right? Like, he sees people's potential. He wants to grow other entrepreneurs. He wants to use his experience, his wisdom. And so that led him on a path of courting, dating, right timing, right? But also very early. And so because it was early, it was this, hey, I found this person, and he meets, I call them the conditions of satisfaction. So what are the conditions that this person needs to meet for me to be satisfied with them moving forward in this path towards a partnership? And, and it's a messy path, right? Like, it wasn't a very smooth transition, but it came with so many steps, so many hurdles. But first it started with, okay, let's see how we can work together. Let's see what that dynamic is. Let's see how you work with the team.
Right.
Let's see how we deal with issues and breakdowns. And of course, with the economy being like so red hot a few years ago and then so like decimated just in the last year or so, you get to reveal each other's character and how you can handle these types of uncomfortable dialogues, right? And what's been so amazing is that through this process, he's questioned, like, is he gonna be? Maybe he's not. What if it's somebody else? Like, maybe he is, but this is the reason why. This is why it works. And it's only about maybe 5 or 6 months ago that he's fully transitioned himself out and let this person take the helm. And he just messaged me yesterday. He's like, the business is not doing as well as we thought, and he's having all these issues. And we had a meeting, and Oliver, this is the coolest, most collected, most calm I've ever been, and it helped him so much. Just my level of my stillness, right, and my presence in that conversation, that we were able to overcome, these challenges. And for me, that speaks so loudly to what this work I do is all about. It's getting us to that place of see things clearly, come back to the highest version of yourself,
right,
and then look at it.
Like even in the conversation that we had, and the conversation that we're having right now, like just being able to bounce it off of somebody who has the tools to break down problems has been very helpful. Like even just in our conversation right now, I'm like thinking of a path forward that I wasn't thinking about before. Like I lost sleep over this. I told you yesterday, I didn't sleep well because I was like thinking about something. This was the thing. I'm not, like, I don't want to let an opportunity go, but I also just like, I need to be honest with myself. But I couldn't break it down. So.
Because your plate is so full, you already are redlining it. To add this as part, like it demands a little bit more than what you have. Right. So once you can take a little bit of a step back, and it can be just a very short conversation like this, where you're like, okay,
no, because I want more.
I can take a step back,
yeah.
and I can wow, now I can look at it. I have my water bottles over there. Can you see it?
Yes.
Can you see what stickers on there?
Is that Einstein meditating?
Yeah. So Einstein, I'm paraphrasing one of his quotes, but he says, "You can't solve problems using the same level of thinking that created it."
Right.
And so as we grow and succeed and create achievement for ourselves, those successes come with new problems.
Totally.
And so those problems were created from ways of being, ways of thinking that got you there to that point. And so in order to break through those problems, it demands that we shift our thinking. It demands that we look at it from a different place.
I mean, it seems so easy when you say it.
Well, because it's from the outside in.
Yeah, but then you lose focus. Okay, enough about me and my problems.
Was that helpful though?
That was extremely helpful.
Awesome.
I need to like end this podcast and go deal with some shit. Yeah. But I've known you well before you became a coach, and what's funny is that like you watch the evolution of your friends, and when we were in elementary school and we broke apart in high school because I moved away and you went to our home high school.
No, I moved away too.
Did you go to St. Joe's?
I went to St. Joe's.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
I started from scratch, no friends.
So the history is we went to elementary school together. We split. We both went to different high schools than our home high school, which was for me, it was a tough experience. Grade 9 and 10 were not like my favorite years because I had to. Everybody's coming in with their core friends, and you're like the wallflower. And then after we left university, I went out. I remember I went for drinks with you or something at a pub in Liberty Village.
I remember.
And you're like, I'm in like some real estate business, right? And you're like, I love it. I'm making bank. I'm doing whatever. and then I got caught up in what I was doing, and we didn't talk for a couple of years. And the next thing I know, you're like, I am done with this. I hate all of this. Like, I'm basically going to find myself, right? Like and that was like 12, 13 years ago, right? And then I got super busy with like the cannabis stuff, and then you gave me a ring after. This is probably 5 years into your coaching now, or like into like your new career path. But like, what happened? Like, what happened? Like, you went from being in real estate, and I remember you were selling. You could say this better than I can, but it was something like rent to own.
Yes.
Right, if I'm not mistaken, which is a great product for people that can't afford to buy right away, but there is a lot of money that gets made on their backs.
To put it mildly.
Yeah, but like, okay, like tell me. I don't need to tell your story for you, but like talk me through
what happened
from rent to own, from that day at Liberty, till we met each other again for that first podcast. The podcast where you were the host, and it was the first time I'd ever sat and spoken publicly about anything in my life.
Yeah, so when I was 23, I started a rent-to-own business.
Yeah.
And so what that means is, like you were saying, there are people out there who are just a few years shy of being able to get a mortgage, to become homeowners. Mm-hmm. So they might have bruised credit issues, things like this, proving income. And so there's a solution that I didn't invent it. I discovered it, and it was taught to me, called rent-to-own, where as an investor, you can help these people eventually become homeowners while you are kind of like the guardian of that property, right? Like you purchase the property that they choose, mm-hmm. and they work towards owning it, and then they buy it from you in anywhere from like 2 to 4 years. Right. And so from 18 years old to 23 years old, it was a lot of networking, growing myself, educating myself, and growing my network in the real estate world. By the time I was 23, I was ready to pull the trigger. I had a business partner, I had a mentor, and it really helped launch that business forward, especially in the first year. And so what was incredible about that was I remember the first day I was full-time in that business was the day that I was fired from my last job.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I was balancing these things concurrently. I was working in the recruiting industry.
Why'd you get fired?
Okay, so I was working in the recruiting industry, and it was a small business, a 2-man operation, because I wanted some entrepreneurial experience. Mm-hmm. And the boss, he's a friend of mine. And so we had a very good relationship. He's a numbers guy. I had some sales and recruiting experience from a previous job for like a year.
Right.
And he's just like, hey, it's like maybe we should work together. And so we took it from losing money to making money to starting to grow and starting to open up the service offerings of that recruiting company. In the middle of that, I got my real estate license, and I started the rent-to-own business. And because of the freedom and the flexibility in our relationship, I was like, hey, I'm going to go look at some properties. I'm going to go meet with this mortgage broker. I'm going to go meet with this potential tenant buyer. And he's like, no problem, cool. Like, as long as you get XYZ done for the company, do whatever you want. And so there's this amazing freedom that I had to be able to do both of those things. But what's amazing is as I was doing both, nothing was happening in the rent-to-own side. Mm-hmm. We didn't create any results. But the recruiting company that I was working for, they were growing. They were growing the team, hiring full-time salespeople, account managers, recruiters, starting to do really well, right? And one of the new partners that came in, far more experienced in the industry, in the business, calls me in and says, hey, we're really stoked that you have this project that you're excited about in real estate, but we need dedicated people right now, so you should probably go do your thing.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right. And as I was walking to my car, I'm like, oh shit, I will never work for somebody ever again after this.
That's a big realization to make at 23.
Yeah, that was 2009. I was 23 years old.
Yeah.
And I went straight to my business partner's house and we went straight to work. And in the first 3 months, we did 9 rent-to-own deals.
Wow.
Just like this.
Yeah.
And so what was really beautiful about this process was the ability to create opportunity from nothing, right? To prove out the philosophy of, if you have a good deal, investors will come. Mm-hmm. That was, I knew that in principle, but I never lived it yet. And so we were really good at putting rent-to-own deals together, and we didn't know if people would want them, people would buy them. I mean, back then, there was 5% down, 0% down, and it was incredible, right? So people could make 30, 50, 60% ROI a year with our deals. And in those first few months, it really proved it out. And I was so proud of myself and very, very satisfied, by that. And we were able to grow the recognition of our brand in that, in those first couple of years. But I found myself constantly trying to reinvigorate my spirit. Go to another seminar, talk to another teacher, read another book, go back to the things that sparked my inspiration. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what was going on. But it would always die off. Like my motivation would just die off. And we're starting to get more, we started to do some small, local Rogers TV appearances. And we started to get some name recognition. It's like, oh, we heard of you. And then that's why people were starting to send business to us. And we were starting to do okay, right? It was on its way up. And I thought, man, I was so proud and kind of arrogant of I figured out my life path.
Right.
I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. This is it. Everyone else wonders what they're going to do. Here I am. I know what I'm doing. Little did I know what was about to happen next. So as the realtor on all of our deals, that puts a lot of responsibility on me. Right? And so it's in my book. I write this in the first chapter of my book. But all of a sudden I get a letter this thick, okay, filled with 9 complaints against me as a realtor that have been registered against me, with pages and pages and pages of notes, screenshots of my website, with scribbles and highlights and all these things.
From the people that you just sold homes to?
No. From RICO, the governing body of real estate agents. And I'm like, I want to take care of people. I want to do good.
Yeah.
If someone is saying I'm doing something wrong, all of a sudden my whole body just shut down. I was just I was in fear mode. I was in reaction mode. I'm like, what the hell do I do now, right?
Yeah.
As I started to take the steps to clear these things, this is what I find out. It was the investigator who filed the complaints, saw me on TV.
Oh.
It wasn't a customer. It wasn't an investor. It wasn't another real estate agent who was complaining about some misconduct or whatever. It was this investigator thinking that, I think also, to bring it back a little bit, during that time, rent-to-own was very gray. It was not really well known.
Right.
And so it was easily red flagged, and people weren't doing it.
It's still not that popular.
It's not that popular,
Yeah.
and people weren't doing it to the way that I know a lot of people are doing it right now in terms of the highest level of integrity and the highest level of work. And so maybe they were looking for some examples to make, and maybe I was one of them. I don't know. But whatever happened, it led to that, and it led to me taking a step back and questioning, is this what I want? Mm-hmm. Is this what I want to be doing? Because I didn't want to return to the business without addressing some of these core issues. And so I actually, at the lowest point, this was months into this investigation and it wasn't even settled yet. I was just okay, I was so stuck, and I'm like, well, I'm familiar with plant medicines, mm-hmm. and I'm familiar with psilocybin mushrooms, but I'm hearing about this thing, ayahuasca. This is 2012,
right?
From different sources, and and I'm like, I feel like the answer isn't out there; it's inside of me. And so I'm like, okay, let me find the closest person I know who's done it. And I get on the phone and he's like, well, I flew all the way to Peru and then I went on a boat and I climbed this mountain and we were in this room for a week. And I'm like, that sounds too tedious. Like
That's
that's a lot, man. Like, so I decided to do, I believe it's the Terence McKenna method of heroic dose of psilocybin mushrooms by myself in my bedroom in the dark. And I did that for maybe like 4 hours in this experience, in this journey. And it really had me come to grips and face some of my fears. It led to a place of like letting something die that I didn't realize that it was time for it to die. Mm-hmm. And within 7 days of that, I found myself just processing and integrating the insights that came from that journey. And I remember journaling and I was furiously writing. And I was just writing without even thinking. Eventually I said, maybe I just don't give a shit about this business anymore.
Right.
And then I dropped my pen and I stopped. And I'm like, what? What the hell did I just say?
Yeah.
And I still feel like sometimes like I feel that rush in my body. I do right now.
Yeah.
It was like, we know what we want. We know what is inauthentic. And we don't necessarily look at it. And we don't let ourselves even write it or say it. Because as soon as we address it, it turns real somehow. And so it spoke to what was missing for me for the 12 months before that, which was we decided we need bigger investors, we need to do bigger deals, and we need to do more deals. Mm-hmm. And as we did that, as we achieved that, we found bigger clients, we did bigger deals, we did more deals. It never, ever nurtured me.
No satisfaction.
No satisfaction.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is so weird. And there's nothing wrong with doing deals. There's nothing wrong with that. And I celebrate it. I love seeing people succeed and win in whatever game that they're playing. But for me at that time, I didn't realize underneath, it was understanding that I have a higher calling and it's not this. I have gifts and I have skills that are better used somewhere else. It's not this. Mm-hmm. And I needed to give myself the time and the space to really question and look at what might that be.
That hits on so many levels because as you say that, I think everybody listening to this probably has to have an honest conversation with themselves and be like, what are you avoiding? Or like, what is that awkward question that you're not asking yourself? Right? Like, and as you were talking, like, there's probably a couple that I'm not even ready to answer. Like, I probably know the answer. I'm just like, we're going to bury that under the rug for a couple more years until I'm ready to deal with it. Then take that to where you are now, because I want to also talk about the book, and like a few other things, but like, so you go from that, and what is that higher calling? Like, how do you get to here?
Yeah, it was so
more drugs.
It was do more.
Yeah, all the drugs, guys. Yeah,
more is the answer.
Yeah.
No. That was it was very helpful to use use the psilocybin mushrooms in a ceremonial experience to find those questions, to ask those questions.
Can we
right?
pause here? Like when because I know you, this is not an advocacy for like doing drugs for recreational use. Like I've seen the way that Oliver uses plant medicine to open up different parts of your mind and it is not an enjoyable experience.
It's work.
It's work. Like if you think you're gonna eat a bunch of mushrooms, or if you go full send and do ayahuasca, which I have never done. I do want to do it, but I've never done it. You will be in for a rude awakening. This is like our disclaimer as to like, if you hear this, you'll be like, oh, like the key is,
especially since it's getting a lot more attention.
Yeah.
Which I think that's part of what is neat. Like people are starting to realize certain aspects of themselves, and it's healing in so many ways which is the reason why it's being there's a spotlight on it. But then also it comes with, yes, when there's a little bit of hype, it can lead to people making rash decisions, not thinking things thinking things through, or not giving enough sacredness or reverence to what these medicines, what these tools, these teachers actually are. So yeah, that's I
just
agree
like a
with that.
disclaimer before we go too far down this road, and people think like the answer is in like excessive use. There's a science to this. Don't do it alone. Probably like get a coach or somebody who's done it before to like help you through this process, especially if you're going into like the deep stuff like ayahuasca. But anyways, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So it's essentially, a part of me kept debating, start a business, a new business, flip houses, and dive into my real estate license, get a job. My fear was just like, okay, just make some income while I close down that company, and a part of me just knew like that would just add more noise, and it wouldn't let me really question and look into what am I here for? Like, why am I on this planet? What did God put me on this planet for? And so I actually decided to take like a sabbatical, and it lasted for 6 months. And in those 6 months, it was a very painful process because, not only was I burning through savings, I was going deep into my credit card debt, and I was just like annihilating my financial situation in hopes that I would figure something out. And I talk about it in the opening of my book, which is like, it's just, for me, it was so remarkable that as I started practicing the principles that I teach in the Daily Prosperity Method, results started happening within that sabbatical that allowed me to finance and like actually recover in such a powerful way, and to be able to invest in experiences that actually led me to even more clarity. But one of the things that I started to do was connect these different dots and say, okay, what have people said to me? What kind of feedback have I gotten? I had one person meet up with me at a second cup, and he was like, I was in the middle of my rent-to-own business, and he was in the middle of trying to flip a house, but he was like gambling on the side, and he had some permit issues, so he was stuck and just burning cash. And I gave him a piece of advice. I said, hey, you want to be an entrepreneur? You need to learn sales, right?
Yeah.
Like you need to learn how to generate revenue. Like what you're doing right now, like it's not gonna help you moving forward. And I remember him telling me, he's like, Oliver, after that, I Googled Toronto sales jobs. I clicked the first one. I interviewed with the first one, and I took that first job.
Yeah.
And it changed his whole trajectory. Within 3 years, he actually branched off and started his own company of the same industry.
Oh, no
and like
way.
he built a team, and he's like, in a weird way, if you didn't help me that day, I wouldn't have even done any of this. And I'm like, that's crazy. And then also I had some sense, right, of, hey, I want to help somebody else, right? 1.5, maybe 2 years into the rent-to-own business, I put a reach out on Facebook, and I said, anyone want to quit their 9 to 5, start a rent-to-own business? Reach out to me. Like I'd be happy to mentor you for free, right? And it was kind of like not free, but it was in exchange for a percentage of ownership on some deals or whatever, right? And so I remember the first person who met up with me. We met 4 times before he did his first deal. And he did another one, then he did another one, then he did another one. And I was just like giving him the shorter path, the clearer path, the simpler path, removing his blind spots. And he was just able to just do such amazing things. And 12 months after that, he quit a high-paying banking job so he can go full-time into real estate. And so I connected these dots where people would be in tears having conversations with me, inspired, energized. And I'm like, am I not a real estate investor? Am I meant to be investing in people?
Right.
Am I here to unlock people's potential? Am I here to help people realize they have the power to transform themselves? And that's kind of how the journey began, where I realized how many people have walked a similar path as me, but they find themselves spiritually bankrupt. On paper, they're starting to do well, or they are doing well, but health, personal life, relationships, inner peace, nowhere to be found. And they're like, what am I doing? And so like it really led me to realize that is what I'm here to do. I'm here to, be a guide for people who are just like me on this path. And of course, it has evolved, over the past almost 12 years in terms of, who I work with, how I work with them, what ends are we trying to reach. But ultimately, the foundation is still the foundation.
So that's where, we had that one conversation in 2009. We picked it back up when you were well into your coaching career. And I'd seen you, like, you were two different humans. Like, honestly, like it was like a angry man in a suit, and then like this like super chill guy. You somehow got younger. Like, I'm not kidding.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Like I don't know what it was, but like, and you have a vibe about you now that like you like, it's always nice to be around you. Tell me about the book.
Okay. Yeah. So, how does that begin? Like, 2017, New Year's Day, I declared I'm an author. I was like, because I asked myself, if this was my last year on the planet, what would I regret not doing the most? Mm-hmm. Not becoming an author. That's what I wrote. I always knew that there was something inside of me, like it needs to be out, it needs to be expressed, it needs to be released in the form of a book. Because I love books. I'm inspired by many books that I've written, and a lot of them I reread, some of them 5, 8 times.
Right.
Because I'm just like, this is how transformational they've been to me. So I know the power of books. And so I furiously wrote a 30,000 page or 30,000 word manuscript that year, and it never saw the light of day. Because I was just being, I don't want to cuss, but
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just being like, I was so insecure.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm only a few years into my coaching practice. I need more results. Mm-hmm. I need to build more authority. I need to prove myself even more. And who am I to give people this type of information or education or wisdom or whatever it is? And so literally, besides my brother helping proofread it, no one has ever seen that book.
Okay.
And then every year after that, what would I regret not doing if this was my last year on earth? If this was the last year on earth, over and over and over again. So memento mori, the idea of remembering death, is a foundational part of my coaching practice. Mm-hmm. When you realize that you are mortal and time is not guaranteed to you, tomorrow is not guaranteed to you, it can really connect you to what matters. And so I repeatedly said, not becoming an author for years, man.
Right.
And I don't know what it was, but in 2022, it was just, that was the year. That was like a lot of things had happened to kind of lead me to that path of like finally sitting down and making it happen. But essentially, I had done, several ceremonies with ayahuasca to ask myself, what's the next evolution of my purpose? What's the next evolution? I had reached a very beautiful place in my coaching practice. Great lifestyle, very, very calm, very relaxed, but potent, like powerful work that I was doing with people at a high level. And it felt effortless. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I could live an effortless life, giving my gifts and making transformation. This is amazing.
Right.
But it got comfortable, and it got to the place where I'm like, there's more. And the medicine said to me, is helping a handful of people a year really the best use of your gifts, Oliver? And that's when I was just like, holy shit. Damn, I just got called out.
It is time.
It is time.
It is time.
And so the book that I sat down to write, it's called The Daily Prosperity Method. And it is the hardest thing I've ever done. Because imagine having to believe in yourself more than you've ever known that you can believe in yourself, and working on something where you receive no external validation that it works, that it helps people, that it's of value, mm-hmm. and continuing and just coming back every day and continuing with the book. But yeah, essentially what I wanted to ask myself was, if I only had 8 hours with somebody, let's say a book is like 8, my book it's a 10-hour audiobook.
Okay.
If you read it, maybe it's 8 hours, I can't remember. but it's like 396 pages.
Wow.
But if I said,
Wow.
I'm going to leave,
That's wild.
I'm going to leave you with tools and practices and principles and a mindset, a way of looking at life, and you can just run with it after you receive this information and execute on it. And I'll never see you again. I'd be satisfied. That's what I was asking myself. If I was going to hand you this toolkit, and it would help transform your life, what would that look like? And so everything in there is everything that I do, have done, have helped clients do to go from a place of spiritually bankrupt to peacefully prosperous.
So for less than the time it takes to binge watch a season of anything, you could potentially change your life.
If you do the work, because it's very action oriented. Mm-hmm. There are tools, there are processes, there are checklists, there's things, and it's not like this cumbersome list of chores. You start to understand why these things are in place. But yes, like in principle, if you're the type of person you're exhausted, you're overwhelmed, you're burnt out, but everyone around you thinks you're winning at life because of the symbols that you've accumulated and created, which are beautiful blessings. Like, this is not to knock on any type of material success. Mm-hmm. Like, we were talking about that last time we saw each other. I love it. I celebrate it, right?
For sure.
But when it reaches the point where trying to have more or get more is costing you the things that you tell people matter to you. Hey, it matters to people, family, like quality of time, health, mental peace, my spiritual path, all these. If you say those things matter to you, but these pursuits are costing those things, and you feel it, right? You feel it in a restlessness inside of you. This book will help you go from that place to a place of, number one, you have capacity again. Number two, you're doing the things that actually move the needle each day. Mm-hmm. It's called the daily prosperity method because all we have control over is today.
Right.
And if you can live each day from a place of wholeness and completeness, it's daily prosperity, because it's not like prosperity is out there and success is in the future. It's like, no, if you take on these foundational pillars each day, you will have a sense of, wow, I live a good life. Like, I feel so blessed. Yes, there's more. Yes, there's going to be more that you accomplish and achieve and create as you move forward. But you can live each day from a place of like peace and presence and high performing and powerful. But yeah, you do the high value things each day, and then also you have space to let go and surrender and enjoy the process, enjoy the moment. Which, if you practice that each day, what does your future become? Because mm-hmm. what most people are practicing each day is suffering, miserable. I'm living for tomorrow. Tomorrow is when I'll be happy. It's out there. Most people are practicing that, not being grateful for what's right in front of them, not taking care of their body, not taking care of their mind, not being fully present with their family, with their spouse. That's what they're practicing.
Right.
And what you practice, you get good at. So if you're living like that today, you're just setting the steps in place for what you're going to be like tomorrow.
How do people get access to this?
To the book?
Yeah.
So they can go to olivermanalese.com/DPM, mm-hmm. and they can get access to a digital copy of the book. Like I said, it's 396 pages, jam-packed. It's also a 10-hour audiobook, so I read it and I recorded it myself with my own voice, so you can listen to it. A lot of people, sounds like they've been choosing to read it through the audiobook.
Of course. Same.
Depending
no one reads.
People. I get it, because you want to do multiple things at the same time.
Well,
working out, driving, chores, things like this. But also, like, I know you asked me for a printed copy. It'd be so awesome if it was right there.
I know. I was like, give me one to put right here.
Yeah, depending on when this is released, it will soon be available on Amazon as well.
Okay.
With a print version available. So that's something that's going to be in the works in the next couple of weeks as well.
Dude, I could talk to you for hours and hours, and we usually do when we see each other. But this has been a very informative and personally helpful podcast. So thank you so much for being on the show. Please don't be a stranger. I would love to have you back in like 6 months or a year when the book's been out a little bit longer, and I want to hear some of the results that people have taken from it, because I know you're just starting to get feedback on it now. Like, when did you release it? It was a couple months ago.
Yes,
right?
a few months ago.
Yeah. And like, let's keep this conversation going. And my commitment to you is that I am going to not be so close-minded to the idea of coaching, because as we were talking about today, I'm just realizing I am in need of it. I am in it. There's nobody that's immune from it, but you have to be open and willing to understand and take it in. So I appreciate you taking the time to educate a fool.
No, well, you know what? We have to be okay with looking like a fool, right?
Yeah.
That is the first step of any journey where you are young, you're naive, we're a fool. And I think because we're afraid to look foolish, we prevent our own growth, right? So it does take a level of courage to reach out for help or let somebody in and let them see you in a way that other people might not see you is very vulnerable. And I think as well for masculine men, that is very difficult to do as well.
Totally.
But what's so amazing is when you do get out of your own way and you let someone in and say like, hey, I'll let you see me in a way that other people won't see me. And I'll share things that I won't ever say out loud to anybody else or even myself, so that we can create more good, right? Because if we can do more good,
That's the goal of life.
That's really the goal of life, right? For ourselves, for our family, for our community, for the people that we're here to help.
Oliver, thank you so much for being on the show.
My
Appreciate
pleasure,
you,
man.
bro.
Love you, brother.
Love you too, man. Well, that's another episode of the Basem Hanna podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you, Oliver, for being such a great guest. If you want to catch this or other full-length episodes of the podcast, you can go to basemhanna.com. That's BASEMHANNA.com. Or you can find full-length video episodes on YouTube or the audio on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts. Till next time, peace.